I was 30 years old the morning my mother called my engagement an inconvenience. Not a milestone, not a blessing. An inconvenience. Her voice came through my phone like it always had, polished, measured, and edged with a coldness she didn't bother disguising anymore. I remember staring at the message on my screen while sitting in my tiny apartment in Asheville, wondering how a woman who spent her life managing other people's reputations could say something so carelessly cruel to her own daughter. My name is Rachel Merritt, oldest daughter of Harold and Evelyn Merritt, names that once meant something in our small corner of North Carolina. They owned Merritt Timber, a company that had been in the family for 3 generations. At least that's the story they like to tell, the one carved into plaques around the mill, the one embroidered into the jackets of employees who had worked there longer than I'd been alive. But behind the tidy legacy was something much darker, something I wouldn't understand until it was too late to pretend ignorance. My fiancé, Jonah West, had proposed on a foggy morning by the Blue Ridge Parkway. He didn't have money, or a famous last name, or a degree from a private university. He had grease under his nails from working at the motorcycle shop and a patience that never wavered, even on the days when my family's disapproval clung to me like smoke. He held my hand as if he meant to keep it forever, and for the first time in my life, I felt chosen for who I was, not what I represented. I told my parents about the engagement in a simple message. No photo of the ring, no grand announcement, just a sentence. I thought maybe simplicity would soften the blow. I should have known better. Their reaction began with silence, then a polite refusal to attend the wedding, then a warning. We expect you to consider what this means for the family business. That was the moment something cracked in me, not loud, not shattering, but a quiet internal snap that told me the child version of me would never survive what came next. Growing up, the Merritt household was a place where emotions were ironed out, like wrinkles pressed into smoothness, so they never showed. My father treated affection like a reward system. If he put an arm around you, it was because you had made him look good that day. My mother was worse in her own way. She curated our image the way she curated our living room. No clutter, no flaws, no signs of real life. I learned early how to keep myself small and quiet, how to sense the shift in my father's jaw when I said too much, how to read the way my mother's lips tightened when I strayed from the script she wrote for us. My younger sister Emily learned how to perform. She glowed in the way they liked, all charm and softness, never pushing, never questioning. She fit the Merritt mold like she'd been poured into it. I did not. As a teenager, I found escapes wherever I could, working part-time at the library, volunteering at the Humane Society, riding my rusted bike past neighborhoods where nobody knew the Merritt name. I didn't have the vocabulary for it, then, but I was trying to remember who I was before their expectations settled onto my skin. But the real fracture began when I was 17, the day I found an old file box shoved behind insulation in the attic. I had gone up there to look for a winter coat and ended up discovering papers that shouldn't have existed. Land deeds, letters, a faded birth certificate with a last name that wasn't ours, and a photograph, 2 young men leaning against a truck, one of them unmistakably my father. The other man looked nothing like him, and yet somehow everything like him, same jaw, same eyes, same smile he never gave to me. On the back in smeared ink. For H from your brother. Don't forget where you came from. I remember the way my heartbeat felt in my throat. My father didn't have a brother, at least not one who existed in the stories he told. That photograph lived inside my desk drawer for years, like a secret lodged under my ribs. I didn't know what it meant, and I knew better than to ask. In the Merritt household, curiosity was a weakness. Secrets were currency. I didn't understand then that the truth had already begun unspooling thread by thread. When Jonah and I chose a small lakeside venue near Hendersonville for the wedding, it felt like choosing air after years of suffocation. We invited only the people who had mattered to us, people whose presence came without conditions. I sent one final message to my parents, a courtesy more than anything. They declined politely, coldly. The morning of the wedding, sunlight rippled across the water, catching the edge of my dress. Jonah wiped a tear from my cheek before it even had the chance to fall. I felt a lightness in my chest that was almost foreign. But all of that changed when the ceremony ended and I checked my phone. Because the moment I pressed send on a single wedding photo to the Merritt family group chat, I had no idea I had just detonated a secret buried deeper than I ever imagined. And someone in that photograph, someone standing quietly in the back row, was about to tear my family's carefully crafted legacy wide open. When I first saw him, I thought he was just another quiet guest who preferred shadows over conversation, the kind of man who blended into the edge of a gathering, hands tucked into his pockets, gaze steady but restrained. He stood beside one of the wooden posts wrapped in eucalyptus, watching the ceremony with an expression I couldn't read. A softness, maybe? A sadness, definitely. I didn't recognize him, not at first. But when Jonah's sister insisted on taking a group photo after the ceremony, he stepped closer, almost reluctantly. And that was when the familiarity hit me like a cold ripple beneath warm lake water. His eyes, his jawline, the subtle curl at the corner of his mouth. When Jonah cracked a joke, I had seen those features before, but not on him. On the man in the photograph I found when I was 17. The man my father once stood beside, smiling with a looseness he never showed in our house. A brother or someone close enough to have been one. His presence at my wedding felt impossible, like a ghost stepping into daylight. But he didn't speak to me then. He simply gave a small nod, respectful and distant, before blending back into the crowd. It wasn't until hours later, when guests drifted home and the sun dipped behind the ridge, that he approached me. He waited until Jonah was carrying gifts to the truck, until laughter had dissolved into the quiet rustle of evening. "Rachel," he said, his voice low but steady. He knew my name. I turned, heart thudding in my ribs. Up close, he looked older than I expected. Early 40s, maybe? Weathered in a way that spoke of long days outdoors. His hair was flecked with silver, his skin bronzed by the sun. There was a gentleness to him, even in the tension settling around his eyes. "I'm sorry for showing up uninvited," he said, "but I didn't want to miss today." I searched his face. "Do we know each other?" His gaze softened. A long, aching pause filled the space between us. "You don't?" he said. "But I knew you when you were small, before your parents decided I didn't belong." A chill rolled through me, slow and heavy. There it was. The truth I had sensed, but never named. "My name is Lucas," he said, "Lucas Merritt." My breath snagged. Merritt. The last name I had carried my whole life suddenly felt unfamiliar in my mouth. "I know you found that photograph once," he added quietly. "The one of your father and me. He wouldn't have wanted you to see it." My skin prickled. How could he possibly know that? I wanted to ask a dozen questions at once. How are you connected? Why were you erased? Why now? But the words tangled on my tongue. He didn't push. He simply stepped back and said, "When you're ready to hear the full story, I'll be around. I'm not here to cause trouble, but secrets have a way of surfacing when the timing is right." Before I could respond, Jonah returned, and Lucas offered a polite nod before walking toward the gravel lot. His steps were slow, measured, as if each one carried the weight of a past he wasn't sure he deserved to revisit. Jonah watched him go. "Who was that?" The breeze stirred my veil, and I felt that same internal shift I'd felt the day I found the photograph. A hinge turning, a door unlocking. "I don't know," I whispered. "But I think he's connected to something my parents hid." Jonah rested a steady hand on my back, but even his warmth couldn't quiet the unease curling in my stomach. That night, after we returned to our apartment, I made the mistake of opening the Merritt family group chat. Every message came through in a cascade. "Where did you get that photo? Who is that man? Call us immediately. This is serious, Rachel. Delete the picture. Do not speak to anyone." The last message was from my father. "Your actions have consequences you don't understand." My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from disbelief. It was my wedding day. They hadn't bothered to attend, hadn't bothered to congratulate me. But the moment their pristine name was at risk, they mobilized like a 5-alarm fire. Jonah saw my face and sat beside me. "You don't have to deal with them tonight." But I already knew this wasn't going away. My family had operated under a rigid rule for as long as I could remember. Control the narrative before the narrative controls you. And suddenly, because of one man in the back row, they had lost control. That night I lay awake long after Jonah fell asleep. The air felt heavy, thick with questions I could no longer shove aside. Memories flickered my father's sharp tone when I brought home report cards that weren't perfect, my mother's gentle corrections whenever I spoke a little too honestly, Emily's easy compliance that had always made me feel like the problem child. What else had been shaped by lies? What else had been edited out of the Merritt family portrait? The next morning, a black SUV idled outside our apartment building. I recognized it instantly. My parents had sent someone, not to congratulate me, not to offer peace, but to regain control. And deep down, I knew this wedding had been more than a turning point. It was the spark that lit a trail of secrets long buried in the Merritt family soil. Secrets that were about to claw their way into the light, whether I wanted them to or not. The knock came at 8 in the morning, firm, measured, and unmistakably intentional. Not the tap of a neighbor, not the impatient rap of a delivery driver. This was a knock meant to be heard, meant to declare authority before the door even opened. Jonah was pouring coffee in the kitchen. He froze mid-pour. "Are you expecting someone?" I shook my head. The knock came again. 3 slow thuds. I opened the door a few inches, keeping the chain latched. A man in a dark suit stood in the hallway, hands clasped in front of him. He wasn't a stranger. I had seen him dozens of times standing behind my father during company gatherings, holiday charity events, even Emily's high school graduation. His name was Robert Trent, my father's longtime advisor and unofficial fixer. A man known for smoothing out the Merritt family's rough edges, or burying them entirely. "Miss Merritt?" he said with a polite nod. "Your parents would like to speak with you." I didn't reply, and I didn't open the door any further. Now I asked, "Yes, they've asked that I drive you to the house." Jonah came up behind me, placing a hand on the door. "She's not going anywhere without knowing why." Robert kept his expression neutral. "It's a family matter." Family matter. My father's favorite phrase for anything he wanted to hide. "No," I said, unlatching the chain and stepping fully into the doorway. "If they want to speak to me, they can call." "They've tried?" His gaze shifted toward my phone on the table. I saw the messages. They weren't invitations. Robert didn't flinch. "This isn't optional, Rachel. Your presence is required." Required. That single word flipped something inside me. I had spent years obeying directives delivered in that tone, polished cold, wrapped in obligation. But standing there in my pajamas, Jonah behind me, the smell of coffee lingering in the air, I realized something I had never fully accepted before. I didn't belong to them anymore. "No," I repeated, quieter, but firmer. "I'm not getting in that car." Robert exhaled a subtle sign of frustration breaking through his professional facade. "Your father wants clarification about the photo, about the man in it." So that was the priority, not my wedding, not my happiness. Not the fact that their oldest daughter had started a new chapter of her life. The photo. The man. The threat. If they want answers, I said they should start by giving me some. Robert looked at me in a way that made it clear he wasn't used to resistance. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. "From your mother." My stomach tightened. Her handwriting, precise, elegant, unmistakably controlled, was written across the front. "Rachel." I took it and closed the door without saying goodbye. Jonah followed me to the kitchen table, waiting silently as I opened the envelope. A single sheet of heavy stationery slid out, centered with my mother's looping signature. "Rachel, we need you to come home immediately. There are matters you do not understand. Do not involve outside parties. This affects all of us, Mother." No warmth, no love, just containment instructions. I folded the letter and pressed my palms against the table, grounding myself. "Are you going?" Jonah asked gently. "I don't know." But part of me did know I had to walk straight into the fire if I wanted the truth. I had been skirting the edges of my family's secrets for too long, pretending distance made me free. It didn't. Shadows followed even across state lines. That afternoon, I told Jonah I needed to go alone. He argued, but when he saw the look on my face, he understood. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about understanding the path that had led to this moment. The Merritt estate sat on a broad hill overlooking the timber mill. I hadn't been there in nearly 2 years. As I drove the familiar winding road, memories flooded back. Emily and I racing down the driveway on bikes, my mother correcting our posture at the dinner table. My father's stern lectures disguised as life lessons. But the house looked different now. smaller somehow, more vulnerable. I parked and took a steadying breath before walking to the front door. It opened before I knocked. My father stood there, impeccably dressed as always. But there was tension in his shoulders, a stiffness that betrayed something deeper than anger. "Rachel," he said inside now. I stepped past him without responding. My mother waited at the living room, hands clasped so tightly, her knuckles were pale. Emily sat on the sofa, eyes red, mascara-smudged prettiness disrupted by raw anxiety. I had never seen all three of them look so afraid. Not of me, of what my presence represented. We didn't exchange pleasantries. My father shut the door behind him and spoke first. "Who told you about Lucas?" The name hit the air like a slap. My mother flinched. Emily inhaled sharply. The room tightened around us. "I met him at my wedding," I said evenly. My father's jaw clenched. He had no right to be there. "He said he's part of this family," I replied. "Is he lying?" Silence thickened between us. Heavy, condemning. My father took one step closer, lowering his voice to a controlled growl. "You will not speak to him again." "And why not?" His eyes sharpened. "Because he was cut out of this family for a reason." A slow, trembling realization crept through me. This wasn't just a buried secret. This was an erasure, deliberate, calculated, complete. "What did you do to him?" I asked. My father didn't answer. My mother looked down. Emily wiped a tear. And I understood with cold clarity that whatever truth they were about to reveal would burn through everything I thought I knew about the Merritt legacy. My father didn't speak at first. He turned away from me and moved toward the window, the one overlooking the mill yard, where sawdust drifted through the air like pale snow. He clasped his hands behind his back, the same posture he used when delivering speeches at company functions. Controlled, calculated, detached. But his silence wasn't power this time. It was avoidance. My mother was the one who finally broke. "Lucas is complicated," she whispered. A laugh escaped me, sharp, humorless. "Complicated, Mom. He says he's Dad's brother." My father's shoulders stiffened, but he didn't turn around. My mother winced. Emily stared at the rug, wiping a tear that fell before she could catch it. "Is it true?" I pressed. "Is he your brother?" My father spun around so suddenly I took a step back. "He was my half-brother," he snapped. Was past tense, and that is all you need to know. Half-brother. The word echoed through me like a stone dropped into deep water. "Why did you hide him?" I asked quietly. "Why erase him?" His expression hardened. "Because he made choices that would have destroyed this family. Choices that almost cost us everything. Almost cost you everything. Not us, not me, not Emily." The Merritt family had always been a three-person kingdom, with me and Emily orbiting like planets expected to stay in perfect rotation. Of course, the threat he spoke of would be about power, not people. "What choices?" I asked. My father didn't answer immediately. His jaw shifted, the muscle ticking a sign he was wrestling with the limits of how much truth he could bear to reveal. He tried to claim ownership of the company, my father finally said. He wanted rights he didn't earn. He tried to use our father's will to undermine the legacy I spent my life building. I frowned. But why? Why would he think he had any claim to Merritt timber? My father's eyes narrowed. Because he was manipulated. Because he refused to accept the truth of his place in this family. And because he believed lies that were never meant to reach him. He paused, considering, then reluctantly. "He wasn't raised with us. Our father had him with another woman before he met my mother. He wasn't part of our home. He wasn't part of our life." My mother placed a trembling hand on her temple, as if the memory was a migraine resurfacing after years of suppression. "Our father tried to help him," she continued. "Gave him small allowances, paid for some schooling. But Lucas, he had resentment. He always felt entitled to more. And when our father died, my father cut in. He came here demanding half the company, half Rachel." I blinked. "But is that what the will actually said?" My father's nostrils flared. "Of course not. Did you show it to him?" He hesitated, and the hesitation was louder than any lie. My stomach dropped. "Dad, did you hide the will from him?" His silence said everything. My mother closed her eyes, her voice tight. It was a very difficult time. The company was already struggling. If Lucas had disrupted the transition— "You mean I interrupted if he had received what he was entitled to?" My father slammed his hand against the side table, making Emily jump. "Do not speak of things you don't understand," he barked. But I understood more than he realized, because suddenly I remembered that letter I had found years ago, the one written in a handwriting that wasn't my father's. The one that spoke of betrayal. The one that said simply, "I can't believe you would do this to me." I had never known who wrote it. Now I did. "Did you force him out?" I whispered. My father didn't deny it. He didn't even look ashamed. "I did what was necessary to protect this family," he said. "And our father's legacy." "Our father's legacy," I echoed softly. "Or your control." He stepped toward me, eyes blazing. "Be careful, Rachel." I held his stare. For the first time in my life, I didn't look away. "You cut him out," I said. "You erased him. And now you're angry because he showed up again, because he exists." My mother's voice trembled. "Rachel, please. It's not that simple." But it was. It always had been. "What are you afraid he'll say?" I asked. No one answered. Emily finally spoke, her voice small and cracked. "Dad, tell her. She deserves to know." My father exhaled a long, slow breath. Defeat mixed with irritation. A man forced to share a truth he'd rather burn. "He threatened to expose our father," he said. My eyebrows rose. "Expose him for what?" My father's voice turned low, venomous. "For promising him a share of the company." And then breaking that promise. He let the words hang there. I felt them like a physical blow. "So he was promised something," I said. "Something real, and you stole it." My father's face flushed with anger. "I took what rightfully belonged to me. Lucas was nothing but a risk, a stain. A man who would have dragged our name into the mud if he had been allowed near it." Stain. The same word my mother had used about Jonah. The same word they had always used quietly, subtly for anything or anyone who didn't fit the polished Merritt picture. Lucas. Me, Jonah. Anyone who disrupted the illusion. "So that's why you hate him," I said. "Because he's the truth? You couldn't bury deep enough." My father's voice cracked like a whip. "He is not your concern." But he was. He always had been, ever since the moment I found that photograph. I took a step back from my family, my pulse thundering in my ears. "Dad," I said, "if Lucas was promised part of the company, he didn't betray you." I swallowed hard. "You betrayed him." The room went still. Silent, charged. My father's eyes darkened, not with guilt, never guilt, but with fear disguised as fury. And I knew then that I had only scratched the surface. The truth I'd uncovered was the tip of something much deeper, something they still hadn't told me, something almost worse than betrayal itself. I don't know what I expected after confronting my father like that, shouting denial, some volcanic explosion that would tear through the room. But instead, the anger in his eyes shifted into something colder, heavier, and far more dangerous. He straightened his shoulders, smoothing his tie the way he always did before speaking to investors or board members. "If you insist on hearing the whole truth," he said, "then sit." He pointed to the leather armchair across from him. A command, not an invitation. I didn't move. "I'll stand," I replied. A muscle jumped along his jaw. My mother sank onto the sofa beside Emily, twisting a tissue between her fingers. My father began. "Years ago, when our father passed, the company was in trouble. Debt from expansion, lawsuits from environmental groups, decreasing demand. I was the only one with the experience to fix it." Experience. The Merritt word for entitlement. "And what about Lucas?" I asked. My father's nostrils flared. Lucas had nothing to offer. He worked odd jobs, refused to commit to anything long-term. He had no education in business, no leadership skills, no understanding of this industry. Giving him part of the company would have doomed us. "So you took everything I said." "I took responsibility," he corrected. I looked at Emily. She didn't meet my eyes. My father continued. "Our father wrote 2 documents, his formal will and a letter of intent. The letter was sentimental, emotional. He wanted both sons to be taken care of, but a business isn't built on sentiment. So the will I pressed. What did it actually say?" My mother finally spoke, her voice brittle. "It left the company to herald fully no division." "Because you rewrote it." The words left me before I could stop them. My father's face reddened. "We did nothing illegal. Illegal. Not immoral, not deceitful. Just technically clean." "Emily," whispered Rachel, "just listen." I squared my shoulders. "I am listening. And what I'm hearing is that Lucas was promised something, and you made sure he never got it." My father didn't deny it, he simply moved on. "When Lucas confronted us, he made threats. He said he would expose our father's broken promise, create scandal, disrupt the transition at a time when the company was collapsing." My mother dabbed at her eyes. "He was angry, unstable." "Unstable," I repeated. "Or grieving his father." My father threw up a hand. "You weren't there. You don't know what he became. He blamed us for everything," he said. father cared more for me than him. He shouted at your mother. He trespassed on this property more than once. He became obsessed. Obsessed. Another convenient Merritt adjective. After months of conflict, my father said we took legal action. We restricted his access to the property. We shut down communication. It was best for everyone. Best for you, I said. He ignored the correction. My mother added quietly. Eventually, he stopped trying. He moved away, started his own life. It was done. Done, as if erasing someone could ever be done. I crossed my arms. So why now? Why show up at my wedding after all these years? My father's expression darkened. Because he wants something. I felt a strange pull in my chest. Maybe he wants the truth. No, my father snapped. He wants revenge. He wants a foothold in this family again. Your wedding gave him an opportunity to insert himself into our lives. To insert himself, I said slowly, into a family he was born into. Silence, thick and suffocating. Then he said the words that made every hair on my arms rise. And he will use you to get what he wants. I blinked me. My father crossed to his desk, pulled out a folder and tossed it onto the coffee table. The papers inside fanned open. I recognized some of the letterhead legal forms property records. What is this? I asked. A revision, my father said, your inheritance. Something twisted inside me. What inheritance? He pointed to a line on the first page, my name, next to a series of clauses I didn't understand at first glance. You and Emily are beneficiaries of the company, he said, equal shares distributed upon my death. My heart hammered. Since when? Since the estate restructuring last year. I stared at him. You never told me. You didn't need to know. My breath came shallow. And what does this have to do with Lucas? My father's gaze sharpened into a blade. Everything. If Lucas reappears publicly, if he makes claims against the family, it won't just damage the company. It could jeopardize the inheritance you and Emily are entitled to. My stomach dropped. He wasn't warning me for my sake. He was weaponizing my supposed inheritance to control me. I took a step back. I don't want the company. I've never wanted it. My father stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Don't be foolish. This is your legacy, your future. No, I said, this is your legacy, and I'm not your insurance policy. His voice rose. If Lucas challenges the estate, if he tries to take what is ours, we fight as a family. That's not a family, I whispered. That's a fortress. He stepped toward me. You will cut off all contact with him now today, or everything your grandfather built will fall apart. My grandfather built it, I said, trembling. But you tore it apart the moment you decided who mattered and who didn't. My mother's voice wavered. Please, Rachel. Just do what your father asks. I felt the walls of that house closing in on me. The same walls that had shaped me, trained me, silenced me. The same walls that had hidden a brother. My father's tone dropped to something icy. Rachel, choose loyalty. I looked at him, really looked. And I realized he didn't want loyalty. He wanted obedience. I've already chosen, I said softly. I chose the moment I walked out of this house the first time. My father's eyes hardened into stone. Then you are no longer part of this family. The words hit me like a physical blow, but they didn't break me. Because for the first time I understood something powerful. You can only lose something you once had. And I had never truly had them. I walked to the door, my pulse steadying with each step. But before I left, I said the words that shifted the ground beneath all of us. I'm going to find Lucas. My father's face drained of color. My mother gasped. Emily whispered, Rachel, don't. But I was already gone. And nothing. Not even the Merritt name was going to stop me. I drove away from the Merritt estate with my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My father's final words, "You are no longer part of this family," didn't echo. They carved each mile. I put between myself and that house felt like peeling away a layer of skin I'd been forced to wear my entire life. The sun was dipping behind the trees when I pulled into a quiet overlook along the river. I needed airspace. Anything to steady the tremor in my chest. But more than anything, I needed answers. Lucas. The man who had stood silently in the back row at my wedding. The man my father hated enough to erase. The man who shared the Merritt bloodline, but not the Merritt protection. I scrolled through my phone until I found the message Lucas had sent earlier that day. Just 2 words he'd texted after leaving the ceremony. "When you're ready." I typed back before fear could intervene. "I'm ready." His response came almost instantly, as if he'd been waiting. "Meet me at the diner on Route 11 back booth." I stared at the message, breath caught between dread and relief, because I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The diner was nearly empty when I arrived. Red vinyl booths humming fluorescent lights, a waitress filling sugar dispensers. A place where anonymity flourished. A place where secrets could be spoken without anyone listening. Lucas sat in the back booth, a coffee mug cupped between his hands. He looked up when I approached, and for a moment the resemblance to my father stole the air from my lungs. Not in the hardness, not in the arrogance, but in the bone structure, the blood. "Rachel," he said, standing to greet me. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I had to," I said, sliding into the booth. "They told me pieces, maybe half-truths. I need the whole story." Lucas studied me with an attentiveness that felt unfamiliar, gentle, cautious, almost protective. The opposite of how my father had ever looked at me. "All right," he said finally. "I'll tell you. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And your father, he won't forgive you for knowing." "I'm already cut out," I whispered. "There's nothing else he can take." Lucas nodded slowly, then exhaled. "Your grandfather, our father, wasn't the man your parents want the world to remember. He cared about 2 sons, even though only one fit the Merritt mold." He paused, watching my reaction. I held his gaze. "Go on." "My mother met him long before he met yours," Lucas said. "They weren't married, but they were serious. He knew about me, supported me, promised her he'd make things right once the business stabilized. Then, he met your grandmother, fell in love, or claimed he did. And suddenly I became an inconvenience." The word sliced through me. Inconvenience, my parents' favorite label for anything that didn't serve them. "I didn't want trouble," Lucas continued. "I didn't want money. But when our father was dying, he made promises. Not vague ones, legal ones." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. I stared at it. "What is that?" "A copy of the letter of intent," he said, "the one your father pretends never existed." My heartbeat pounded in my ears as he unfolded the yellowed page. The handwriting was unmistakably my grandfather's looped, forceful strokes, identical to the old birthday cards he used to send when I was a child. Lucas read aloud. "To my sons, Harold and Lucas. I leave Merritt Timber in equal shares. Harold will operate the company, but Lucas will always have a place and a right to its future profits." My breath caught. Equal shares always have a place. I swallowed, but Dad said, "He lied," Lucas said gently. "Your father convinced a lawyer to present a revised will, one that cut me out entirely. I never saw the real will, only his version." "But you could have fought it." "I tried." His jaw tightened, the calm slipping. "But your father threatened to expose things about my mother that weren't true. Told people she was unstable, manipulative, the kind of lies that stick even when disproven." My chest ached. "He attacked you to secure control." "He destroyed me to secure it," Lucas corrected. "He wanted the family name unblemished and a son from another woman that would have tarnished his perfect narrative." I pressed a shaking hand to my mouth. Images flashed through my mind. My father polishing his public persona. My mother smoothing every wrinkle in our lives. Emily trying to please him at every turn. "Why come back?" I whispered. "After all these years." Lucas looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Because I saw an announcement of your engagement months ago. The first time your father allowed your name in the news without controlling every detail." He paused. "And because I recognized something in your eyes. The same look I had when I finally walked away. The look of someone who knows a cage when she sees one." Tears stung the corners of my eyes. "But why show up at the wedding itself?" His expression softened. "Because I wanted to see you happy at least once before your father poisoned it. And because you deserve to know you aren't alone in this family, even if they made sure you felt that way." My voice cracked. "Did you come to take something from me?" He shook his head. "No, I came to give you something." "What?" "The truth." A silence stretched heavy with everything still unsaid. Then he leaned forward. "Your father isn't done, Rachel. If he threatened you today, he'll do worse tomorrow. The inheritance he mentioned. It's leverage, nothing more." "I don't want it," I said. "That's exactly why he's afraid." Lucas murmured, Because he can't control someone who has nothing to lose. I let out a trembling breath. What do I do now? Lucas studied me for a moment, then said words that shifted the horizon of my life. You expose him and I'll help. My pulse quickened. Expose him, expose Merritt Timber. Expose the truth. Why, I whispered. He met my eyes steady, unwavering. Because it's time someone in this family chose honesty over legacy. And because I owe our father's promise more than he ever did. A tear slid down my cheek. Lucas reached across the table not to comfort, not to claim, but to offer something I had never been given by my own blood. A choice. Are you ready? He asked. I wiped my tears. Yes, I said I am. And the moment the words left my mouth, I knew. This wasn't rebellion. This was liberation. For the first time in my life, I sat across from a Merritt man who didn't use silence as a weapon. Lucas waited patiently while I gathered myself his coffee, untouched his presence, steady in a way that soothed the trembling inside my chest. So I said finally, voice still rough, if we expose him, where do we even begin? Lucas folded his hands, leaning forward with the quiet confidence of someone who had lived too long in the shadows and learned to navigate them. We start, he said with proof. The letter, I asked, nodding toward the folded document on the table. It's a start, he said, but not enough. Your father will claim it was forged. He'll say I fabricated it out of bitterness, and people will believe him because he's spent decades building a reputation no one questions. Then what else do we need? The original will, Lucas said. The one he locked away. My breath hitched. Do you know where it is? He hesitated, then nodded. I think I do. His eyes drifted toward the diner window, toward the trees swaying under the glow of the parking lot lights. When I confronted your father years ago, he said he had a safe installed in his office. Not the standard company safe, the personal one. He hides behind the wall panel. He put documents in there that he didn't want anyone to see, including the will. I shook my head. You think it's still there? Yes. Because your father holds grudges like sacred heirlooms. He kept that document not to honor it but to control its existence, to ensure it never sees daylight. I felt anger simmer beneath my breastbone, a slow, sharp burn. Breaking into his office isn't exactly an option, I murmured. Lucas nodded. Not now. The company is locked down tighter than a bank, but there's another way. Anything your father revised Will's deeds, estate papers would have gone through the attorney he used at the time. That would have been... I thought back to childhood gatherings, stiff holiday dinners, men in suits discussing zoning codes like gossip, Mr. Aldridge. Lucas nodded. Yes. And unlike your father, that man keeps everything, every draft, every note. So we talk to him. We try. Lucas corrected. He's retired now. Sick from what I hear, but he may still have files your father didn't think to retrieve. He looked at me, studying my face, but before any of that, he said, I need to know what you want. Really want. Not what you think you should want. His question hit me harder than any accusation. What did I want? Not revenge, not the kind that tastes like blood and victory. I wanted truth. I wanted agency. I wanted to stop being a carefully arranged ornament in the Merritt display case. And a deeper part of me, one I barely recognized, wanted to protect Jonah and the life we were building from the storm my parents were already stirring. I said softly, to end their control over me and over you. Lucas nodded once, approval flickering in his eyes. Then we moved forward. The waitress came by to refill cups we weren't drinking. Lucas thanked her with a quiet smile, the kind that said he still found dignity in small moments despite everything he had lost. When she walked away, I said, my father will come after me. Yes, Lucas agreed, he will. He'll try to crush me. He will. But you think we can win? Lucas's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, not quite grim. I think he said that the truth once freed is impossible to bury again. And I think your father has spent too many years burying things. I exhaled slowly, nerves and courage tangling inside me. When do we start? I asked. Lucas checked his watch. Tonight. My pulse quickened. Tonight. He nodded. Your father is impulsive when threatened. He'll act fast. He may already be preparing statements, contacting lawyers, tightening security at the mill. If we wait, the trail goes cold. If we move now, we stay ahead. I leaned back, absorbing his words. How do you know him so well? I asked. You didn't grow up with him. Lucas's eyes softened. You don't have to live in someone's house to know the shape of their cruelty. Some people reveal themselves in the way they handle conflict or in the promises they break. I swallowed hard. He continued. And I watched him for years, from a distance, knew his patterns, knew his fears. But most of all, I know how far he'll go to keep the world believing his lie. I stared at the table, fingers tracing the chipped edge of the formica surface. He told me I wasn't part of the family anymore, I whispered. Lucas's voice lowered. He told me the same thing, Rachel, more than once. But a man doesn't get to decide who his family is by cutting people out of photographs. The image hit me. My father trimming the edges of our family picture until only the version he approved remained. Lucas leaned closer. You and I. He said we are the parts he tried to throw away. And now we're the ones capable of unraveling everything he built on lies. My breath trembled. Tell me what to do. Lucas pulled out a small notepad and slid it toward me. We meet Aldrich tomorrow morning, he said. But before that, you need to go home. Why? Because your father will try to contact you tonight. He'll escalate. He may even show up. And when he does, the way he behaves will tell us how desperate he is. A chill slid down my spine. What if he becomes violent? He won't, Lucas said, though something in his eyes told me he wasn't entirely certain. Your father values image above all else. He won't lay a hand on you, but he may manipulate, threaten, lie. And you need to hear every word he uses. Why? So we know exactly what he fears most. I sat back, absorbing the gravity of what lay ahead. Lucas, I whispered, thank you. He shook his head. Don't thank me. Not until this is over. We left the diner under the dim glow of the buzzing sign, the air thick with mist and truth. Before we parted ways, he rested a hand lightly on my shoulder, hesitant, almost protective. You're stronger than he thinks, Lucas said. Stronger than you think. I nodded, feeling something shift inside me. A beginning, a reckoning. A crack in the Merritt foundation. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We need to talk tonight. My father, Lucas had been right. The storm was already coming. I pulled into our apartment complex just after 10, the streetlights casting long, trembling shadows across the pavement. Jonah's motorcycle was parked crookedly. He always swung it in too fast when he was worried. I felt tension wrap around my ribs, like a tightening band, as I climbed the stairs. He opened the door before I even reached it. Rachel, he said, pulling me into his arms. I saw the messages. He won't stop calling. My phone buzzed again, another message from the same unknown number. Pick up the phone or I'm coming there. The Merritt way. Ask politely, then demand, then invade. He's not stepping foot in here, Jonah said. I'll call the police if… No, I whispered, placing a hand on his chest. I need to hear what he says. Lucas said, his reaction tonight will tell us what he's afraid of. Jonah frowned deeply. Rachel, you don't owe that man another second. I know I meant it, but this wasn't about obligation. It was about strategy. Jonah exhaled, jaw tight, then nodded slowly. He trusted me even when it scared him. We sat together on the couch, the phone vibrating between us. Finally, I pressed call. My father answered on the first ring. Rachel! His voice was low, controlled, but cracking at the edges. Where are you? At home, I said calmly. Why? You're not safe. A bitter laugh rose in my throat. From what the truth? From him, he hissed. From Lucas. I closed my eyes briefly. He was predictable in his accusations, but his fear, real fear, threaded beneath every word. What do you think he's going to do to me? I asked. You don't understand who he is, my father said. He's unstable. He wants to destroy this family. By telling me the truth about the will, I countered. Silence long, explosive. You've been manipulated, he said finally. He rehearsed these lies for years. He feeds on resentment. He wants to punish me, and he's using you to do it. My grip tightened on the phone. Dad, did you rewrite the will? He didn't answer. Did you? I repeated. He exhaled shakily. I did what had to be done to protect your grandfather's business. Lucas would have run it into the ground. That's not an answer, I said. It's the only one that matters. I pressed my lips together, my pulse throbbing behind my eyes. Jonah moved closer, his hand slipping into mine. My father continued. I'm coming to get you now. No, I said. You don't have a choice. I do, I whispered. I'm not your child to command anymore. His voice dropped into a tone I had heard only twice before, once when I confronted him about ignoring Emily's depression as a teenager, and once when I told him I wasn't joining the company. It was the voice of a man who had lost control. Rachel, if you involve yourself with Lucas, you are aligning yourself against this family. There is no coming back. I swallowed hard, I know. You think he cares about you? My father sneered. He'll use you. He'll drag you down with him. He has nothing to lose. That's not true, I said sharply. He lost everything because of you. My father inhaled sharply, and for the first time I heard something new beneath his fury. Panic. Rachel, he said, voice trembling despite how hard he tried to steady it. Listen to me. You are about to make a mistake you cannot undo. No, I said, you made that mistake years ago. Jonah closed his eyes, squeezing my hand. My father's voice hardened. If you continue down this path, I will protect this family by any means necessary. By lying, I asked. By doing what you're forcing me to do, he snapped. Something inside me twisted, a sinking sensation as if the ground beneath my life shifted an inch. Dad, I said quietly, what did you do to Lucas? I don't mean legally, I mean really. What did you do? The silence on the line was colder than his anger. I ended a threat, he said finally, and I will not let you resurrect it. Then he hung up. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding in my throat. What does that mean? Jonah whispered. I shook my head. I don't know. But I did know. My father wasn't afraid of losing the company. He wasn't afraid of losing public image. He wasn't even afraid of losing me. He was afraid of exposure, of what Lucas knew, of what I might discover, of the truth he buried so deeply that even saying the word brother cracked his voice. And if he was willing to protect the family by any means necessary, then we were crossing into dangerous territory where legacy mattered more than blood, and image mattered more than a daughter. A soft ding sounded. A new text. Not from my father, from Emily. Please be careful. There are things you don't know about Dad. About what happened back then. Please don't do this alone. My breath hitched. What happened back then, I whispered aloud. Rachel, Jonah said softly. What if this isn't just about inheritance? I stood feeling cold spread through my limbs. I think it isn't. And you're still going to meet Aldridge tomorrow? He asked. Yes. Jonah swallowed. Then I'm coming with you. I shook my head. I need you safe if something goes wrong. No, he said, stepping toward me, voice firm. We're a team. Whatever this is, you're not walking into it alone. His words melted something inside me that years of Merritt hardness had frozen. I placed my hand on his cheek, then stay close. Tomorrow, everything changes. Because the truth wasn't just buried, it was dangerous. And someone in my family, maybe more than one, had been willing to destroy a life to protect it. Jonah barely slept that night. I could feel him tossing beside me, the mattress dipping each time he turned. But I didn't sleep at all. My father's words, his threats, his panic. The crack in his voice played on a loop until dawn bled into the apartment. At 7, Jonah brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. By 8, we were on the road toward the outskirts of Hendersonville, where Mr. Aldridge, the retired estate attorney, lived now. Lucas had texted earlier. I'll meet you there. Back porch entrance, front door is alarmed. The message raised more questions than it answered. Why would a retired attorney have an alarmed front door? And why did Lucas know that? The drive felt longer than it was each mile, tightening the knot in my stomach. Jonah reached over occasionally to squeeze my hand, grounding me before my thoughts spiraled. You don't have to do this, he said softly as we turned down a winding rural road. Yes, I whispered, I do. Because now it wasn't just about Lucas. It wasn't just about the inheritance. It wasn't even about me. It was about the truth that had been buried under the Merritt name, like roots strangling the earth beneath them. May. Aldridge's property sat at the end of a gravel drive, bordered by overgrown hedges. The house itself was modest and peeling, a far cry from the downtown office he once occupied, with polished floors and gleaming desks. Aging wind chimes clinked softly under the porch awning as Jonah parked the car. Lucas waited near the side gate, hands in his jacket pockets, shoulders hunched as if braced against more than the morning chill. You made it, he said when we approached. Of course, I said. Do you think he'll talk? Lucas's jaw tightened. He might. He's dying. A cold shiver traveled down my spine. What? Stage 4. Lucas said quietly. He doesn't have much time. That's why we have to get to him before my father does. Before my father does. The implication hit me hard enough that I stumbled. Jonah steadied me. You think your father would intimidate him? Lucas didn't hesitate. He already has. He pushed open the side gate and we stepped onto the back porch. The screen door creaked loudly as Lucas knocked. A beat. Then another, finally slow footsteps approached. The door opened just a few inches. A frail man with sunken eyes and thinning white hair peered out, blinking owlishly. His sweater hung loose on his narrow frame and his hand trembled slightly on the doorknob. Lucas. His voice cracked thin as tissue paper. "You shouldn't have come," Mr. Aldridge, Lucas said gently. "This is Rachel Harold's daughter." The old man's gaze flicked to me, softening with recognition and something like pity. "You look like your grandfather," he murmured. "Not your father. Not at all." I wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or unsettled. "We need to talk," Lucas said. "It's urgent." Aldridge hesitated, glancing nervously over his shoulder as though someone might be watching from inside. His voice dropped to a whisper. "He's already been here." My pulse spiked. "Who?" But I didn't need to ask. We all knew. Aldridge motioned us inside quickly, locking the door behind us with trembling hands. The house smelled of old paper, and cedar boxes of files lined the living room, stacked haphazardly beside a sagging armchair. It was the organized chaos of a man who once lived by documentation, but no longer had the strength to maintain the order. Aldridge sank into his chair, breathing heavily. "Your father came yesterday, told me to burn everything. Everything related to the estate. The old drafts, the letter, the notes." Lucas leaned forward. "Did you?" Aldridge closed his eyes. "No, I couldn't. Not after what happened. Back then." A chill spread through me. "What happened?" He looked at me for a long time, so long I felt my breath hitch. Then he spoke with a heaviness that made the air feel thick. "Your father didn't just hide a will, Rachel. He didn't just steal a company. He destroyed a man's future, and he used me to do it." Lucas's jaw clenched. Jonah reached for my hand again. Aldridge continued. "When your grandfather died, the original will left part of the company to both sons. Your father panicked. The company was fragile, and Harold believed, truly believed, that Lucas would ruin everything." He paused. "He asked me to draft a revised will, said his father had changed his mind verbally. But I never saw the man alive after that. I never heard such instructions." I swallowed. "So he lied to you too?" Aldridge nodded weakly. "Yes, and he pressured me into notarizing the revision without proper verification. I knew it was unethical, illegal even. But he threatened my career, my family, my reputation." "What about the original will?" Lucas asked. Aldridge gestured toward the boxes stacked beside us. "In there. Somewhere I kept a copy I shouldn't have, but I knew what he did was wrong. And your father knew I had doubts. That's why he came yesterday to clean up." He reached for a folder, shaking so hard I took it from him to help. Inside was a stack of aged papers, handwritten notes, letters, and finally the original will. My hands trembled as I read the words. "I leave Merritt timber to my sons Harold and Lucas in equal shares." My throat tightened. "This is real. This proves everything." Aldridge nodded. "But you must understand your father won't allow this to surface. He's already desperate. And desperate men." He looked at Lucas. "They repeat their past." Lucas stiffened. "What do you mean?" Aldridge's voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. "He didn't just cut you out. He orchestrated the charges that ruined you, the trespassing accusations, the restraining order. He made sure you were painted as unstable, dangerous. He used his position to influence the sheriff's office, the judge, everything." My heart lurched. "You mean—" I whispered, searching Lucas's face. "He framed you." Aldridge nodded. Lucas's jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle jumping. He stared at the floor, breathing through the rage that threatened to fracture his composure. "He didn't just rewrite the will," Aldridge said. "He rewrote Lucas's life." A silence heavier than grief filled the room. Finally, Aldridge reached into a drawer and pulled out a small flash drive. "This," he said, placing it in my hand, "contains scanned copies of everything in this box. Every version of the will, every note your grandfather wrote, every record of communication from that time. If your father tries to destroy the originals, the truth survives." I clutched it like a lifeline. Aldridge leaned back, exhausted, his breathing shallow. "Go now. Before he comes back, he'll realize soon that he can't trust you to stay obedient." Another tremor rippled through me. "Why tell us?" I whispered. "Why now?" His gaze softened with remorse, older than I was. "Because guilt," he said, "is a weight heavier than legacy." As we stepped out of the house, Jonah carrying the box of documents, Lucas holding Aldridge's handwritten notes, I felt the world tilt. Not slightly, completely. My father hadn't just buried a brother. He had buried justice, truth, morality. And now that truth was in my hands. As the car door shut behind me, my phone buzzed. A message from my father. You've made a terrible mistake. Another message followed. Come home now. A third. This is your last warning. I exhaled shakily, staring at the screen. No, I whispered. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. We didn't go home. Not to our apartment. Not anywhere my father could predict. Jonah drove us to a quiet lakeside cabin owned by one of his co-workers, a man generous enough to lend us the key without asking questions. The air was crisp, pine-scented, almost peaceful, an unsettling contrast to the storm building around us. Lucas followed behind in his truck, the headlights cutting through the growing dusk. In the back seat beside me sat the cardboard box filled with documents that could rip open decades of lies. The weight of it felt almost alive. When we reached the cabin, Jonah locked the doors behind us. Lucas set the box on the wooden table and exhaled as if he'd been carrying that burden for 20 years instead of 20 minutes. Now what? Jonah asked. Lucas looked to me, not as if I had the answer, but as if I had the right to decide. We go through everything, I said. We build a timeline. We gather proof. Then, we decide how to release it. Jonah nodded. We have the flash drive too. Even if the originals disappear, we have digital copies. Lucas's shoulders eased a little. Your father will panic when he realizes Aldridge didn't destroy the files. He already knew something was wrong, I said quietly. He warned me, threatened me. He said I was making a mistake I couldn't undo. Lucas's expression hardened. That's his fear talking. Fear you've never seen before. Fear means he's losing control. I swallowed. So what do we do with that? We use it, Lucas replied. We spent hours sorting through documents, wills, letters, estate drafts, legal correspondence, and a journal entry from my grandfather that nearly made me cry. Harold is ambitious, but Lucas, he has my heart. He reminds me of myself at that age, hopeful, determined, unspoiled by business. I want them to share the future of this family. They both deserve their place. My grandfather had written those words in ink that had faded with time, but the sentiment was clear. My father had destroyed that wish. 2 hours passed, then 3. At some point, I found myself staring at a letter written in Lucas's handwriting, crumpled around the edges, like it had been held too tightly for too long. Harold, you said you'd follow our father's wishes. You said we would work it out. Now you refuse to meet with me. You have everything. Why take what little belongs to me? Why erase me, L? I pressed the letter to my chest for a moment, absorbing the ache in each looped stroke. Jonah noticed, "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I'm exactly where I need to be." See. Around midnight, the cabin felt colder. The wind rattled the branches against the window, like fingernails tapping glass. Lucas moved to toss another log into the fireplace. "Your father won't stay quiet much longer," he said. "He'll come for the evidence." Jonah tensed. "Let him try." I shook my head. "He won't come himself. He'll send someone, a lawyer, a fixer, or Robert." Lucas nodded grimly. Trent was always his shadow. He does Harold's bidding without blinking. My stomach twisted. He came to our apartment. He tried to make me go with him. "Then he'll come again," Lucas said, more aggressively. A heavy silence settled over us. Jonah moved to stand behind me, his hands resting on my shoulders. "We'll protect this. All of it. And we'll protect you." Emotion swelled in my chest, love, fear, determination, grief for a father I had never truly had. But before I could respond, a loud vibration echoed across the table. My phone. I picked it up slowly. Unknown number. Another message. "Where are you?" Then another. "You're putting us all in danger." Then, "Come home before you ruin everything." Then, "Don't make me do this." The words felt like ice water poured down my spine. "What does that mean?" Jonah asked. I swallowed hard, I think. "I think he's unraveling." Lucas walked over, eyes fixed on the phone. "He's losing control. He never allows panic to show. For him to send messages like that, it means he knows his power is slipping." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice message, just 2 seconds long. Jonah's eyes widened. "Don't play it. I have to." My fingers trembled as I pressed play. My father's voice, shaky, breathless, unsteady, filled the cabin. "You don't understand what you've started." Then silence. No threat, no instruction, just fear. Real fear. Jonah stepped back, unnerved. What is he hiding that's worse than what we already know? Lucas's expression changed. He hadn't been surprised by much so far. But now something flickered in his eyes, something like dread. "There's more," he said quietly. I looked at him. "More what?" Lucas ran a hand through his hair. Something Aldridge didn't know. Something only your father and I knew. My breath caught. Tell me. Lucas took a long, steadying breath. Years ago, he said slowly after your grandfather died. I confronted your father one last time. I told him I was considering legal action, that I wasn't giving up. He paused, and that night someone tried to run me off the road. My heartbeat stopped. What? It was late. I was driving home. A truck with no headlights appeared behind me on the mountain pass. It accelerated, rammed the back of my car hard enough to spin me. Oh my God, Jonah whispered. I barely survived, Lucas said. The official report called it an accident. No suspect, no follow-up. But someone knew where I was. Someone knew my route. Someone with reason to silence me. My mouth went dry. Are you saying? I can't prove it, Lucas said. But yes, I've believed for years that your father ordered it, and that the sheriff covered it up. The room spun slightly. My father tried to kill you. Lucas looked straight into my eyes. He tried to make sure the truth died with me. Jonah stepped forward, voice shaking with rage. If that's true, it is, Lucas said softly. I sank into the nearest chair, hands trembling uncontrollably. The air around me thickened as if turning to liquid. All my life, I had feared disappointing my father. All my life, I had believed his anger was discipline, his coldness was strength, his control was protection. But now I saw him clearly. He wasn't protecting the family. He was protecting himself. And he had been willing to commit the darkest sin to do it. I looked up, voice barely a whisper. Lucas, were you the only one he tried to silence? Lucas hesitated. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. No, I wasn't. The fire popped sharply in the cabin's stone hearth, but the sudden warmth did nothing to thaw the icy dread spreading through my chest. No, I whispered. What do you mean you weren't the only one? Lucas sank into a chair across from me, elbows braced on his knees. He looked older than he had just an hour ago, aged by memory, by wounds never spoken aloud. Never. He rubbed a hand over his face. Your grandfather trusted two people with the truth about the will, me and your grandmother. I blinked. Grandma Ruth. He nodded. She knew everything. She knew our father wanted both sons included. She knew the revised will wasn't valid. She begged Harold not to bury the truth. She said it would ruin the family from the inside out. My throat tightened. I had adored Grandma Ruth. She was warm, soft-spoken, the only Merritt who ever allowed cracks to show. She planned to go to the attorney, Lucas continued, to have the original will verified, to force Harold to share the inheritance like their father intended. And then I whispered. His eyes met mine, haunted, apologetic, aching. Then she died, Lucas said softly. Suddenly. Too suddenly. My stomach twisted so violently I grabbed the edge of the table. No, I whispered. She had a heart attack. That's what they told us, Dad said. Lucas shook his head. Your grandmother wasn't sick. Not in any way that should have killed her. She was healthy, sharp. And the timing. Rachel. The timing wasn't coincidence. Something inside me snapped. Not a sound, but a sensation. A realization. Did she tell anyone? I asked about what she planned to do. She told your father, Lucas said, accused him to his face, told him she would expose the truth if he didn't. Air left my lungs, and she died the next week. I felt like I was sinking, like the world around me had cracked open to reveal a cold underlayer. Are you saying? My voice broke. Are you saying he killed her? Lucas held up both hands. I don't know, I swear to you, I don't know. I'm not saying he did anything directly, but the circumstances. They were too convenient, too perfectly timed. She died before she could speak to Aldridge, before she could file a legal challenge, before she could defend me. Jonah paced behind us, fury vibrating off him. So he let her die or helped her die because she stood in his way. Lucas's voice lowered. At the very least, he let the truth die with her. My breath trembled. I can't believe this. But I did believe it. Because the dots connected too cleanly. Because my father had always viewed people as obstacles or assets. Because my grandmother was the only one who ever dared to say no to him. I stood abruptly, my knees shaking. I need air. Jonah followed me to the door, but I stepped out alone onto the cold porch. The sky was a black canvas, pricked with stars, sharp and distant. I wrapped my arms around myself as the wind whipped my hair across my face. My father's voice echoed in my head. Don't make me do this. Do what? What lengths would he go to now that the truth was slipping out of his grasp? Lucas stepped out quietly beside me. Rachel. I wiped my cheek. I hadn't realized I was crying. I don't know how to hold all of this, I whispered. I don't know how to reconcile the man who raised me with the man you're describing. You don't have to, Lucas said gently. You only have to see him clearly now. I do, I said, a tremor in my voice, maybe for the first time. The door creaked open behind us. Jonah stood in the doorway, his expression tight. There's more, he said. What I asked. He held up my phone. Your sister just called 6 times. My heart raced, Emily. Voicemails too, Jonah said. She sounds terrified. I snatched the phone from him and pressed play. Emily's voice burst through the speaker, shaking, panicked. Nothing like the polished image she always presented. Rachel, please pick up. I don't know what he told you. I don't know what Lucas told you, but you need to listen to me. Dad is not himself. He's been in meetings all night. He's furious. He's saying things I've never heard him say before. A choked sob. He's blaming you. He's blaming Lucas. He's blaming everyone. He keeps saying you're going to destroy us, that he'll do whatever it takes to stop this. I don't know what that means, but Rachel, you need to stay away from him. Please. A pause. I'm not safe here. I don't think any of us are. The voicemail ended. Jonah stared at me, jaw clenched. She's scared he'll hurt her. Lucas inhaled slowly, his face pale. Harold's unraveling faster than I thought. I sagged onto the porch step. What do we do? Lucas sat beside me. We finish what we started tonight. We prepare everything. Tomorrow morning, we take the evidence to the Attorney General's office, not local, not county, state level. Somewhere your father can't reach. A flicker of hope. And Emily, Jonah answered. We get her out of that house. Before fear could seize me again, headlights swept across the cabin yard. All 3 of us froze. The beam cut through the trees, bright and deliberate, aimed like a spotlight. Jonah whispered, "Who the hell?" Lucas stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "That's Robert Trent's car." My heart slammed into my ribs. Jonah pulled me back inside. Lucas locked the door. But the knock came anyway, hard, violent, echoing through the small wooden cabin. Bam, bam, bam! Rachel Roberts' voice called through the door, disturbingly calm. We need to talk. Jonah grabbed my wrist. Don't open that door, Lucas whispered. He wouldn't come alone. My voice quivered. What do we do? Another crash, this time louder. Jonah's breath hitched. He's trying to break in. Lucas clenched his fists. Your father sent him, he said. Which means Harold knows exactly what we found. The next bang shook the cabin. Rachel Roberts shouted, "Open the door." My pulse roared in my ears. This was the moment. The line between truth and danger had vanished. And everything, the past. The evidence, our lives, balanced on what happened next. The pounding on the door shook the cabin so violently that dust drifted from the rafters. My pulse hammered in my ears. Jonah positioned himself between me and the door, hands clenched into fists. Lucas stood at the window, peering through the crack in the curtain. His voice was calm but sharp. There are 2 of them. Trent and one other. Probably hired, not local. My stomach clenched. What do they want? You, Lucas said, and the documents. Another crash rattled the frame. The wood splintered near the lock. Rachel, Robert, Trent called again, voice steady and dark. Your father wants to resolve this peacefully. Don't make this harder. Peacefully. The word curdled in my stomach. Jonah swore under his breath. This isn't a negotiation. They're here to take everything. Lucas grabbed my arm. There's a back window. Follow me. We hurried down the narrow hallway, just as another crash thundered through the cabin, closer this time. The doorframe groaned under the assault. But before we reached the back, headlights suddenly washed across the windows from the opposite direction. Another car. I froze. Is that? Lucas peeked. His expression broke into disbelief, Emily. Emily's compact SUV skidded across the gravel and jerked to a stop. She jumped out. Hair messy, makeup, smeared eyes wild with fear. She ran toward the cabin just as Trent and the other man turned toward her. No, I whispered. No, no, no. Before Trent could stop her, Emily screamed. Leave her alone. Her voice cracked the night. And in that moment, something inside me broke wide open. I bolted for the front door. Rachel Jonah grabbed for me, but I slipped past him. Because Emily was outside, because she was alone. Because she had finally chosen me over him. I flung open the door just as Trent reached toward her. Get away from her. He froze, turning slowly. Emily stumbled behind me, clutching my arms so tightly, her nails dug into my skin. Trent's face twisted in frustration. Your father warned you not to drag her into this. She dragged herself. Emily snapped, her voice shaking. He's losing his mind, Rachel. He's tearing the house apart. He said, he'll end this tonight, he said. She broke into sobs. Lucas and Jonah stepped outside, flanking us like a shield. Trent's expression hardened. We're leaving with the documents, or we're leaving with all of you. Those are the options. No, I said quietly. Then louder. No, those are your father's lies talking, not mine. Trent stepped forward. And that's when Lucas moved. Fast, controlled. A blur of resolve 20 years overdue. He stepped between Trent and us, eyes blazing. Harold sent you to finish what he started. But you can tell him this. He leaned in, voice sharp as steel. The truth survived. Trent's lips curled. You think the truth will save you? No, Lucas said, but it will destroy him. For a moment, no one breathed. Then tires screeched in the distance. All of us turned. A third vehicle tore up the gravel driveway, headlights blinding. My stomach dropped. My father stepped out before the car even stopped moving. He looked disheveled, tie, crooked hair, wild eyes burning with something unhinged. I had never seen him like this. Controlled, polished Harold Merritt was gone. In his place stood a man cornered by his own lies. Rachel, he barked, come here now! Every instinct I had learned as a child. Obedience, fear, appeasement surged up inside me, but I didn't move. Emily stepped closer to me. My father's gaze flicked to Lucas, and something feral flashed across his face. You're the reason for this. You've always been the reason you ruined this family. Lucas did not flinch. Your father wanted us both to belong. You're the one who couldn't live with that. My father lunged toward him, but Jonah and Trent both grabbed him at once. Trent struggled. Sir, stop, this isn't... But my father shoved him off violently. I will finish this myself. His eyes snapped to me. You think you're exposing me. You think you're hurting me. You're nothing without this family. Nothing. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the chaos. I'm everything without you. He froze. For the first time in my life, Harold Merritt heard something he couldn't control. I stepped forward, the flash drive in my hand, glinting under the porch light. This, I said, is the truth. The original will. Your father's words. The letters you hid. The proof of everything you stole. He stared, breath heavy, chest heaving. You wouldn't, he whispered. You wouldn't destroy us. You destroyed us, I whispered. All I'm doing is revealing what you built on top of the ruins. He lunged again, straight toward me. No, Emily cried. Jonah moved first. Lucas moved faster. He caught my father by the arm and twisted, redirecting his momentum. My father stumbled, lost his footing, and fell hard onto the gravel. Silence thundered across the yard. Trent stared at him, stunned. The hired man took a step back, uncertain. My father looked up at me from the ground, eyes wide with a fury that had nowhere left to go. You will regret this, he snarled, all of you. No, I said, you will. And then police sirens howled in the distance. Emily exhaled in shock. I called them, she whispered. Before I drove here, I didn't know what else to do. For once, I wasn't angry. I was proud of her. The sirens grew louder. My father's face drained of color. Trent tried to help him up, but my father jerked away. I won't let this happen, he hissed. I will not lose everything. You already did, I said. The cruisers pulled into the driveway, lights washing the trees red and blue. The aftermath unfolded like a slow, inevitable storm. The officer separated us, questioned each person, secured the documents, and eventually placed my father in handcuffs. Not for the inheritance, not for the lies, but for attempted assault, intimidation, and obstruction. But that was only the beginning. Lucas and I brought the will and evidence directly to the state attorney the next morning. Investigations followed. Doors once bolted shut were forced open. Testimonies arose from people my father had threatened over the years. Board members demanded accountability. The town whispered. Reporters circled. And Merritt Timber, his empire slipped through his fingers like sawdust in the wind. He didn't just fall. He unraveled. Months later, I stood on the same overlook where I'd first messaged Lucas. The trees swayed gently, the breeze cool against my skin. Jonah wrapped his arms around me from behind. You okay? Yes, I said, and I meant it. Emily was rebuilding her life with therapy and distance. Lucas had been publicly acknowledged as part of the family, finally, and was working with a legal team to reclaim what had been stolen. The state's investigation had grown into something larger than any of us expected. My father now lived in a quiet assisted facility in another county. Still furious, still unrepentant, but powerless. For the first time in his life, he faced consequences he could not manipulate or silence. And me. I had learned the most painful truth of all. Sometimes family isn't what you're born into. Sometimes it's what you choose to build after the ashes. I took Jonah's hand. I'm free, I said. And as the sun rose over the blue ridge painting the sky gold, I believed it.